like rice, wheat and maize for the next 150 days. This was revealed by the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar Kyari, during a press briefing at the National Press Center in Abuja. This move, according to the federal government, is not only to cushion the effect of hardship being experienced, but to also achieve food security and economic stability in the country. Joining us in the studio is food security expert, African farmer Mogaji. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
We also have via Zoom from Ado-Ekiti, co-founder, Cattle Foods and Agro-Allied Global Concepts Limited and general manager of Crest Agro, Belumi Aribisala. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. And lastly, joining us via Zoom from the United States of America is convener Social Rehabilitation, Grace and Support Initiative, Dr. Oludari Marindoti. Gentlemen, good morning. It's good to have you all join us.
Thank you. Good morning, Frank. Thanks for having me.
All right, let me begin with you, Dr. Marindoti. You have been clamoring that the government begin to import food items, and here we are now. It seems the federal government was paying attention to the things you were saying. How excited are you about this move by the government?
Thank you, Veronica. I was excited until about a few hours ago when I saw an update that said that the tweet was deleted and that the policy is still under review. And, and I'm so thankful, for, TVC and all media platforms for giving me an opportunity to express my views. The guest you have in studio, Mr. Mogaji, I've seen a couple of his videos where he has actually said things that are similar to this in the short term and also provide long-term solutions. So I'm so excited that we are having this, conversation, all of us together on this platform. It is quite disheartening to me, really, because when you think about it, the food in Nigeria is not enough. Unless we want to play God Almighty, whatever solution we are providing, we are not certain that it is going to work. We think it is it is well thought out, but there is no certainty. Nothing will promise you tomorrow, today. So we should give those policies that are very lofty, some of which, the guest in the studio, Mr. Ogaji, has been advocating for, we should give them time to materialize. However, we should not starve ourselves through this process. We should allow food to come in. And even the 150-day, assuming this policy actually eventually gets, implemented, this 150-day is not enough. It is too late, and even it is late, maybe not too late, it's never too late, but it is late, and the 150 days is not enough, because what are you telling food importers? You are telling them to import the food, keep it for 150 days, and then when you bring back those humongous punitive, duties, then they can jack up their prices. So you have to allow it to keep on coming in until our food production matches our demand or something like that. You can have a quarterly review, you can have an biannual review or whatever, but we cannot say that we want to prevent Nigerians from having food because we want our farmers to be able to sell the food that they are making. I have always said this: food security trumps food production. Yes, Nigeria should be able to produce the food it eats, but Nigeria should eat first so that it can produce food. Like, the people are suffering. We have import duty on maize that is making it impossible for people to get feed for chicken, to lay eggs that children will eat. We already don't have enough good food demand. Our food demand is piss poor. So, and if we want an economy that is good, we should expect that the purchasing power of the people and the food demand should go up with their income level. So we cannot be pegging this thing to 150 days. We should let food come in. If we have farmers that are making losses, we can support them. The government should protect the consumer and support the producers, not the other way around. So there are so many things that can still be done to bring down the cost of food. Right. In terms of like maybe transportation. We can also give subsidy for diesel for people transporting food and the farmers, and give it in such a way that it's managed by their local government and they can be verified, and all those things. These are things that are done all over the world.
Right. So let me bring into the studio to Mogaji, because I know that you've also always been at the forefront of advocating, solutions to this food crisis and all of that. And the federal government has tried to, introduce different measures, including releasing of 42,000 metric tons of assorted food commodities from the National Strategic Reserve, 58,500 MT, 30,000 MT of rice, and that of the milled rice from the Rice Processor Association. So, but all of this, regrettably, they've not actually solved the situation. So do you feel that this latest developments from the federal government would definitely address this issue, considering the human factors which will always hinder this kind of policy?
Well, I recall on the 23rd of January, I was on this seat saying that the government will have to import grains. And I heard a lot of bashing, no, government will not import, government will not import. And fortunately, government has taken a U-turn. Well, which is what I like about this administration, which is when they see something is not working, they are also not afraid and ashamed to say it's not working, let's change it. Now, this will help, or rather, let me change it. This should help on a short term, and it will. But why I said should is if customs is not pegged, this may be another disaster for local production. Even though the government has mentioned ability and the intention to mop up production, but if custom is not taken care of, lots of things will come. There will be over importation and co. So government needs to pay attention to that. But it's a step in the right direction. It is coming a little late, but also timely. What this does, the people who have ordered will now onboarding what they've ordered, okay? Also, it helps the government to take care of the reserves, but it needs to be strictly monitored. If not, we will recycle the same mistakes we've been recycling for a long time. But this will help on a short term and help local production to be able to bridge that gap.
All right, and I'll take it from the point of government needs to monitor this whole matter, else we would recycle the errors that we had in previous times, which is also some of the concerns some persons have raised. And I'm coming to you, Balumi Aribisala. There has been concerns about the model which we adopted in previous times when it comes to the import of grains and other food items. And there are those who have been saying that government needs to change that model so that that it is trying to do is successful and it achieves what it needs to achieve at this time, and that government should look at the real farmers as against just allowing anybody import. What say you to this?
All right. Thank you very much, and good morning. Thank you for having me on this show this morning. First, I would like to speak from where you thought that, okay, the model that we have adopted in times past when it comes to importation or trying to have some quick fix. Yes, the truth is these models have always been faulted or has not always achieved what we intended them to achieve. Yes, it is true. We have to import. There is a demand gap. There is a supply issue and all of that. But then, are we really looking at the farmers? Are we really looking at sustainability? These models that we have always adopted have not in time past considered sustainability. Yes, the government has said, oh, there is a 150-day window, just like African farmer mentioned earlier. Yes, those who ordered will now have to open up and all of that. But the question still remains that after they have opened up, after they have imported, what is the target that we have? Are we what metric tons of each of these are we targeting to draw into the country within these 150 days? When that 150-day elapses, then we go back to the problems that we are facing with primary production. We are not looking at the farmers. I was reading through the press release by the Honorable Minister, and I looked at it. I was trying to pick out, at the end of this low-hanging fruit that you want to pluck, what are the concrete plans to really get the farmers to productivity? As long as there is no productivity, yes, we are not producing enough, but we need to shore up that production. We need to increase it. We need to look at what are those factors. The Honorable Minister agreed that, yes, there are a number of factors that have been responsible for all these hikes and why we find ourselves where we are now. But then what are we doing to address these factors? How will we get the maize farmer to improve their productivity from an average of 1.5 tons per hectare to 5 tons per hectare? Maize is 3 months period. The grace period that we have for the importation is 5 months. What are we looking at in the area of sustainability? So government needs to back up this food import, a model with the smallholder farmer, a model that helps the smallholder farmer to increase productivity within that space of time. And if we are able to do this, then it will be like a kind of backward integration for the importation intervention or initiative. So if we're able to do this within that short period of time, then if in 150 days we see that, oh, we have these things in the country, then our productivity, local production, can bring it to sustainability. I see that government was talking about, identifying lands for irrigation and all of that.
That's right.
That was what Mr. President promised a year ago.
That's right.
So if it took us 1 year, and we have not backed up productivity, local production, I don't see us doing that in 150 days. Thank you.
Dr. Marindoti, one question that actually came to my head when Mr. Aribisala was talking was if the government actually brings in imports all of this food produce, what happens to the local farmers? And then would they not go back to the issue of hoarding? And the question that actually came to my head was, why do we have farmers that are producing or harvesting, and then they are hoarding it? Is it not inhumanity to man? What do you think?
Well, they say all is fair in business and in war. So while you can say it's unscrupulous, practice, some business people will tell you those are shrewd business strategies. So we cannot take a moral perspective to this. We have to take a problem-solving perspective to this. Everybody has spoken about hurting local farmers and local production, but I believe, and I think this might be a fact, that Nigeria has one of the lowest labor in the world. If you now couple that with the fact that, our currency is also at about an all-time low, that means that food production in Nigeria can actually have a global market. So we cannot think about food production from a mere Nigerian point of view. So definitely we can always improve our production. But if you look at the cost of production in Nigeria, it is not the people. It is essentially the infrastructure that we don't have that is making all these things expensive. And now that the government has stopped giving the rich of the rich subsidies on electricity, dollar, and fuel, because they are the ones that use those things more than the farmers that don't even have electricity in their rural areas, they have money now to invest in those infrastructural things that will ensure that our food production can go up, that we can preserve our food. And now they can invest money in training those farmers. I mean, I am also privy to one research that my sister who works with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture is doing on dairy sustainability and all. We can invest in these things, and over the long term, it takes time for you to produce. There are factors of production and there are factors affecting production. Those factors affecting production is what is affecting Nigeria. That is why our farmers cannot produce. So we cannot keep on giving them, we will not let subsidy. We should let them grow. If I have a child that is not doing well in class, I will not give him 50% of the mark before the school starts. I will get him teachers to train him so that he can write the exam and pass and compete with all his mates. Because if I gave him 50%, what I'm ensuring is his failure. So we should invest in our farmers from the money that we are now saving and let food keep on coming in. When it gets to a point, we will be exporting. There will be no market for imported food because our food will be too cheap.
All right. Let's bring the conversation back into the studio to African Farmer. You've listened to both persons. Pelumi has spoken, and his perspective is what happens after this 150 days, especially the farmers who, like he pointed out, hoard at some point, and then they are not the model that we're using for importation being faulty as it is. And then we also see Marin Doty talking about the fact that we must begin to look at investing in our farmers. Will that create a sustainable framework at the end of the day for us and ensure food security as a country?
So let me just clarify something. It's not the farmers that are hoarding. It's you and the middlemen.
Me?
Yes.
How?
The working class professionals,
right,
and other working class, blue collars and co, who are hoarding.
Are you hoarding?
Yeah, so that's the reality.
No,
how so?
So this is, most enlightened people now understand that these items will be expensive at some point in time, so they mop up and invest in it. And it's good, it's not bad. Okay? It's because production, which is the act of planting, is low, and productivity, which is the output per that maybe one plot, needs to increase by 3 times, 5 times. That is what is causing it. Those hoarding, the positive side is it helps keep food in the country as against moving to West Africa.
But at a higher cost.
At a higher cost. There is a cost of investment also on that. They are also taking a risk. Part of the risk they've taken is about to get into a Waterloo soon. Right. Okay? So there's a good side to all this. We should be encouraging individuals and institutions to embrace silo as a business. Setting up silos around all these locations where you have commercial agriculture going on, or commercial production, because commercial production is different from commercial agriculture, commercial production. So bottom line is, you can have big tractors using 100% equipment operating the land. And you can have 1,000, 10,000 small farmers also producing. It's also commercial, but at a small scale. If we have private sector owning silos, that like you have like in the US, in India, then we'll be able to keep the food here. Now, what happens to the farmers? I've been privileged to engage the minister a few times recently. And one of the conversations is mopping up what is produced. Now, another conversation is government investing in our seed system. It has to be government that will provide funding that can stay for a long time. So, yes, we need to unlock private sector, local funds into our farmers, and not the existing old farmers. Younger, the children of these farmers need to be brought in by private sector funding. That is a low-hanging fruit we've not leveraged. Government cannot fund Nigeria's food security with this crisis. Government can facilitate or create platforms. That is what we need. But private sector, we need to begin to focus more on opportunities. Now, government is focusing too much on the crisis that we are having, instead of talking about opportunities for the private sector to step in. If we focus on opportunities, Commonwealth, unlocking Commonwealth, we will feed Nigeria. If we focus on the crisis, we won't feed Nigeria.
That's a critical one. Anyway, we need to quickly go on a quick break. When we return, we'll continue this conversation. Stay with us.
New Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. No need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids. Milo!
Thank you for staying with us. Before we went on the break, we were speaking on the matter of food security and the measures being put in place by government to address it. We still have our guests with us. In the studio, we have African farmer Mogaji, who is a food security expert. I'm from Ado-Ekiti, co-founder Cattle Foods and Agro-Allied Global Concepts Limited. Pelumi Aribisala joining us. So from the U.S., we also have joining us convener Social Rehabilitation, Grace and Support Initiative, Dr. Oludare Marindoti. But I'll come to you now, Pelumi Aribisala, on this matter of putting together structures that will favor farmers at a critical time like this. There are those who are saying, as much as we are looking at the low-hanging fruits to address them, we must also look at something sustainable, like you mentioned earlier. And one of it is to address matters of insecurity, which is also a major factor affecting food sustainability and security as a country. And just yesterday, we saw the president put together a ministry of livestock to foster peace between herders and farmers. I wonder how you see that also addressing this matter of security challenges and addressing the conflict we have seen amongst these two persons.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll say that first and foremost, structures are very important. One of the things that has seriously affected the Nigeria agricultural space and the food sector is because the bulk of the smallholder farmers, who are the ones producing majority of the foods, are not in a properly structured groups or settings. Well, recently, more farmers have been coming in to form cooperatives, form clusters, and I think this is something that we need to improve on greatly. We need to, the government needs to enhance the formation of smallholder farmers into clusters. And this is one of the things that can even help the government in data generation and data collection.
Okay, well, here there is some network challenge there, but let's come to you now, Dr. Marindoti, still talking about addressing this matter of security and the step taken by the federal government yesterday to address the matters of conflict between farmers and herders. How far do you think this step will go at addressing the conflict?
Well, it is any step is a welcome step, but the primary basic thing is the fact that the security situation in Nigeria is bad. Our security infrastructure is piss poor. So everything will still go back to that restructuring and giving the communities, the power, empowering them to be able to manage their securities, because these clashes are happening within their community. So if they have the power to police and to, adjudicate and, sentence and all of this, they will be able to resolve this on a local matter. I will tell you a story that happened in Okakoko where, we are from, that whereby there was like some herdsmen that, I think committed the crime, and then they were arrested. And the people that arrested them while they were walking, those same herdsmen were on the back scene laughing at them, when they left the police station, because, there's a lot of all these policies, all these, politics that affect it. So these things need time to materialize. We need to quickly start restructuring our security so that we can achieve this baseline, basic security that will translate into everything. You cannot remove the farming in the community from the security situation in that community. So if people are getting kidnapped, farmers will get kidnapped, and all these things will still happen. So these things, that's what I'm saying, these things take a long time to fix. And, you know, thank you, Mr. Mogaji, also for talking about, you know, the opportunity, because when you think about it, food is being bought. Everybody, we need food. It is like petrol. It is a chemical, actually. It's a fuel. So it sells a lot. So there are opportunities, there are business opportunities that private people can explore, and we can also make farming very sexy. Microsoft has this Farm Vibe AI that a lot of, you know, youth can find exciting, using drones to, map out farms and, you know, diagnose diseases and all of these things. We can bring them in, and this will also help spur our production and all. But we have to ensure that while we are looking at this problem on a long-term basis, like a decade basis, we are allowing Nigerians to eat, because you need these solutions to take time. Nobody is God. Nobody knows that all this solution is going to work, because we don't know tomorrow. So we need people to be able to eat while we are experimenting with all these solutions and also tweaking it. And then we will arrive at a place whereby Nigerian farmers will not be looking only to Nigerian, consumer. We will be looking at the global consumers. We will be looking at our pesticide, all our pesticide and, fertilizer impediment that is affecting our food exportation. And no, food is a global thing that Nigeria has the natural resources and the God gift to tap into, that we can use technology and all of these things, that some of them that I'm even working on an incubator phase and no. But we need time. We need time. So we need food, so that Nigerians can give the government time to get Nigeria out of this crisis and explore the opportunity, the business opportunity in farming. Let
me bring you back to the studio with African farmer, Mogaji. Oftentimes, whenever we talk about issues, challenges, we often refer to the federal government. But I know that the Southwest governors came together recently to look for ways to, bolster economic, regional economic integration in terms of agriculture, and even mandating the state commissioners for agriculture to come together and come up with a blueprint on how to implement some of these things. How do you think the state governors are faring in that plan? Because even away from the Southwest, we've seen Kogi State Governor also doing some farm implementation and all of that. And also the local governments and local councils. How much do you think they've been doing to key into resolving this, quagmire of food crisis that we've been facing?
Well, so I was privileged to be in one of the meetings after their initial coming together, hosted by Dawn Commission. Sadly, the outcome was not pleasing to someone like me, and I'm saying this because the governors need to pay attention, where you are brought to advise, and at the end of the day, you're not recognized as being in the room, and every other person recognized, but you are brought to prefer, So what I'm saying is the governors need to pay attention to more funding. If there's no more funding, if there's no additional funding going into the ministries, then the commissioners cannot perform any magic. Also, when the funding is released or budgeted for, the governors also need to ensure that the Ministry of Finance and Accountant General are part of the committees working with the commissioner. If not, if the funding is not released at the time it ought to be released, then they cannot work magic. So the governors, for me, people should be judged based on potentials. The governors across the country, not just Southwest or South, they're not improving. Apart from, there's a lot of talk. In the North, the governors are not providing cottage industries where people can process what is produced. You don't see that in the North, across the North. In the South, you don't see production happen. Okay? You have more processors here without production. So when we judge or when we are to appraise them, let's appraise them on potentials. The local government, they are missing in this loop. We focus too much on federal government. And federal government, is just a catalyst. The state governors are not doing as much as they do. They need to. This year, the tomato scarcity was caused because Southwest did not fit into the gap that they have the potentials to leverage. Point blank. Which is, they have the lands, they have more rainfall. As at the time there's no tomatoes in the north, if Southwest and South generally had developed themselves or positioned, they would have taken advantage to create commonwealth for their people. So the governors need to sit up more and to be able to do more. Enough of this federal government conversation from the state. The state has the resources, they have the funding, they have the private sector willing to fund. They just need to open up and support their commissioners of agriculture. As far as Southwest is concerned, you have in the history the best when it comes to exposure, when it comes to practicality. You have it in Southwest now. They just need to unlock what is holding them.
When you talk about unlocking, you need to expatiate so that we understand what you mean by that. What should they do when you're talking about unlocking?
Yes. First thing first is the budget, like I said. Second is to make sure that the Ministry of Finance or the Accountant General gives money at the right time. And also to make sure it's priority, not talk. There's a lot of talk and not priority. And agriculture does not work in isolation. There are many ministries. They should remove all those other ministries, put them into a committee under the Ministry of Agriculture, and let the Ministry of Agriculture run. The Ministry of Agriculture wants to run, but another ministry, 4 or 5 ministries must approve something before they move. Let them come in as a committee and let the governor say to them, you hinder this goal that this person wants to achieve, you are sacked. Especially the PS and the directors. We can't continue to talk. We are sitting on gunpowder, especially in Southwest. The governors we need them to talk tough and we need them to act tough. Many people in Southwest, youths, many of them have been in detention. I've been there, okay? It's not something you see on national, but I've been there, okay? Because you want to do something and policies change, policies pronounced is not enough. Yeah. So many youths in the Southwest, when we say they are not going into agriculture, you don't encourage them to go into it. That's the truth. So the ones going into it are getting mentorship from some of us who have gotten pains. If you got everyone, Pelumi also, we all have trailer loads of woes. It's just that we're positive and patriotic. That's why we're still in this business. And until we are able to get the commissioners who are willing to work with the SMEs who also are willing, if we don't allow that to happen, we're joking in Southwest.
Because obviously saying they need to take this as a matter of emergency and urgency because our attitude towards all of this is very critical. That's what you're saying, bottom line. But let's see if Pelumi is back. Pelumi, are you here with us? Okay, we are still struggling to hear you, but we needed to touch on this matter.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. The Southwest, what they need to do to bridge the gaps that we're witnessing with regards to production, productivity, and even the supply chain, the disruption, how the Southwest and the South can bridge the gap, like we heard African farmer Mokaji mention. From your perspective, how do we improve on that?
All right, thank you very much. We have always mentioned and been on the top of our voice to say that the Southwest have not been acting. There has been a gap from what we witnessed in the cocoa transformation era to what we are having now. There has been a serious decline. And what the Southwest first needs to do is we need to first take a critical look at budgeting. Recently, I did an analysis of what percentage of the budget goes to agriculture from each state in the South. And it is nothing to write home about. We even have some states that allocate as low as minimal as less than 1% of their budget to agriculture. So if we have not been allocating appropriately, budgeting appropriately for agriculture, then we shouldn't be shouting when there is food crisis. The situation that we are in at the moment, as we have foreseen it since 2019, 2020, when COVID struck. And we said it is important that we quickly begin to ramp up production. So the Southwest are in a very good position when it comes to rainfall, land, and all of that. There is absolutely almost nothing that cannot grow in at least 1 or 2 states in the Southwest. I mean, things that we depend on other regions for. So it is important that we develop a very effective crop calendar. We know the crops we consume. We know the ones that we export. We know the ones that are always expensive. We know the ones that are always very scarce. We know when they are scarce. So while we are waiting for our brothers, our colleagues in the north to supply us tomato, can we also put into good use our river basins in the south? These are collaborations that the state can foster with the federal government. Yes, the federal government owns the river basins, but the state governments are the landlords of these river basins. Can we start developing agricultural production around our dams? This way we can talk of all-year irrigation. The rains are here now. They didn't come on time this year. Or we have always been dependent on rain-fed agriculture. So which means for the period that the rain will not come when it should come, the crops will have a crisis, which will in turn become a crisis for the food system. So the state governors are not doing enough. They are not doing enough at all. In fact, there are some states that are not even open to counterpart funding. To say, oh, development partners or private sectors want to fund. No, they are not open to counterpart funding. Nobody is going to hand over 100% funding.
That's right.
To you.
That's right.
Let the state governments open up the lands. Let the private sector come to do business on this land. Let us increase our allocation, our budgetary allocation to agriculture.
That's right.
There's a declaration that says there should be 10% allocation to agriculture. Nobody has followed that since that declaration. And that is the problem.
Interesting stuff. Dr. Marindoti, there is a problem. We need solution. And then where is our entrepreneurial spirit? Because where there is a problem, we should be able to think, how do we also provide solutions in our own little way? And this is what I'm talking about. A lot of farmers like African Farmer Magaji, even you yourself and Mr. Aribisala have been saying that individually, why don't we also look into our backyards and become peasant farmers, or at least maybe grow something in our garden? This probably would, resolve some of the issues we are facing, maybe individually. But others are saying, well, I live in a rented apartment. There is no way I can farm. In fact, developers are not even helping matters. They concrete everywhere. They floor everywhere of the building, which maybe as a tenant or anything. So what do you think we can do individually to also bridge this gap, to solve our own immediate problem, as against waiting for the federal government or the local government or even the state government to resolve these issues for us? Because people are saying that it is not possible. How has it been done over there where you are?
There's a song that says they paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Definitely those are problems. But, when you talk about backyard farming, I think Farmer Mogaji once said that is for your mental health, because it will not necessarily, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but it will not necessarily then put a dent in the demand. It is very sad for me to hear what Farmer Mogaji and, Farmer Aribisala also has been saying, that, they have, had a lot of woes. Farming business should be a loss-proof business. During COVID-19, the farmers were the ones that got the most amount of, funding or stimulus grants into the hundreds and millions of dollars from the United States government. Farming should be a business that the government should let you know that once you get into it, you cannot make a loss, because we will buy your loss and give you the funds to keep on growing until you are profitable. And most times you might not even be profitable because you have to keep the foods cheap. So farmers get, diesel subsidies, they get a lot of grants, they get a lot of, giveaway, they get a lot of tax cuts, So these are things that affect it. We are living in Nigeria whereby the Yalata cannot put his pepper on the floor in the market without some area boys coming to collect 200 naira from her or 1,000 even before she has made the sale. Is that not also affecting the cost of food? So we need seriousness in the country, and everybody has been right. The governors, the local government people need to be at the forefront of these things. This is their neck of the wood. They should be making policies and allocating funds. Without money, Shina Peter said it. Without money, nothing can be done. You can be Mr. World, you can be Mr. Africa or Mr. Nigeria. So we need to dedicate the required resources to this thing, because I am an optimist. I see the cup always as half full, not half empty. This opportunity, a tide in the affairs of men, if taken at the flood, leads on to success. That is what we should be looking at. This is an opportunity for Nigeria to be one of the food suppliers to the world. But we have to be serious, from the governors to the local government people to the presidency. And like you have said too, the presidency is still doing too much. The governors are not really being, maybe governor of Niger State and a few others, but most of the governors are silent about this, as if it is the headache of Bola Tinubu, not me. These are things that the restructuring of the country will also do, because now you have more power, you are in charge, you have to make your decisions, you have to feed your people, So we have a lot of things that needs to be done. But prices, yes, I believe we should allow food importation until it becomes not profitable for the importers, because we have cheap labor. So we should need to, infrastructural development, rail transportation. I once counted over 150 train rail, trucks being dragged by just one machine. That is cutting the cost of transportation, and we are building it. We have the money now. So all these things need to be done on a long term. We will not solve food problem in Nigeria over 4 years. We will not even solve it over 8 years, because we have to calculate our investment with our population growth. Well, when population grows, they eat food.
That will be subject to a debate right now, because I'm throwing that question to African farmer Mogaji. He is saying that we may not be able to solve the matter of food production, food sufficiency, perhaps food security in a matter of 4 years or 8 years. Is that true?
On a long-term basis, when we're looking at sustainability, for us to be able to say, oh, we don't have issues, yeah. But on the immediate, my name is African Farmer Mogaji. 6 months. 6 months, we can solve this nonsense. If we get the president and the governors on the same page. Pelumi mentioned River Basin. Next year is 30 years, 3 decades of me operating on river basins across the country. It's the will. The private sector in this country wants to make money from this crisis. Okay? So bottom line is, with 6 months of focus and collaboration, leveraging government assets and moribund private sector assets, we will reduce, the pressure will go down big time.
You said the private sector wants to make money from this crisis?
Yes.
How so?
Oh, since I did one video, you need to see everybody. Okay, once they knew that, oh, if you predicted in January that tomatoes was going to be 80, 120, why didn't I put money and make more money so that I can take from that extra to buy expensive products? Nigerians are entrepreneurial. If we allow the private sector, working class professionals, to come on board and give them platforms and show them how we have been able to de-risk, especially some river basins, people will put their money there. And that is how we would get to produce using premium seeds, using premium inputs, not depending on the old farmers, but engaging the young ones. I am certain that in 3 months to 6 months, with the right collaboration and leverage, we will be able to bring all these high costs down, and later now look at long term to look at export. but 3 to 6 months. You need to see lands that have been opened in this country. I've been around. There is land. There are a lot of tractors packed in warehouses. I went to a place, somebody had 3, brand new, untouched. The father wheeled it for them, and they are abroad. And they have 300 hectares, cleared land, but nothing happening. There are so many of these lands that, because we don't know where they are, if government is willing to partner with private sector, we can work together for the common good. But government cannot do it alone. Private sector needs to wake up that this is the time for collaboration. Right,
and that's a fine place to leave this conversation. We must thank you, food security expert, African farmer Mogaji, for your time, as well as guests from Ado Ekiti, co-founder Cattle Foods and Agro-Allied Global Concepts Limited, and general manager of Crest Agro, Pelumi Aribisala. We also heard that you unfortunately lost your dad yesterday. May he so rest in peace, and we condole with you at this time. We must also thank you, Dr. Oludare Marindoti, who joined us from the U.S., convener Social Rehabilitation, Grace and Support Initiative, for your time as well. Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. Thank you. All right. Finally, on the program this morning, we went to the streets of Lagos to ask this question: would you prefer to stay in Nigeria all your life and be given 300 million naira every year, or relocate abroad as a permanent resident with good health insurance? Let's hear what some of the respondents have to say.